No more than a sniff. In the town of Zhytomyr, near Berdichev, there lived a man known as Hirschber. His business ventures always seemed to fail. The community accorded him no respect, and even at home, his wife pestered him mercilessly. It was Erev Yom Kippur, and Jews throughout Zhytomyr were eating their Suda Samavsekis, the last meal before the fast. But in Hirschber's house, there was very little food for the Suda. In frustration, his wife berated him as a poor provider and sent him off to face the long fast on a nearly empty stomach. He made his way to the synagogue, dejected, despondent, and hungry. In the synagogue, everything was gleaming. The curtain of the Aron Kodesh, the Holy Ark, was a radiant white, and each man sat in his freshly ironed white kittel and tallis, reciting the earnest, personal prayer of penitence known as Tefillah Zakah. Hirschber took his seat at the very back of the synagogue. Sitting there, hungry and miserable, he knew it was too late to get anything to eat. But he thought perhaps he could still ask Reb Baruch, the wealthy industrialist who sat up front of the Mizrach, the eastern wall, for a shmek tabik, a sniff of strong, sharp snuff, from the elegant silver snuff box that Reb Baruch always kept with him in shul. Hirschber made his way slowly to the front of the synagogue and hesitantly approached Reb Baruch from behind. He placed his hand on Reb Baruch's back. "Perhaps shmek tabik, Reb Baruch?" he asked softly. Reb Baruch was annoyed. Who could be bothering him in the middle of this important prayer? What earth-shaking matter could justify the interruption of Tefillah Zakah? As he peeked out from under his tallis and saw it was merely Hirschber, he turned to him with disgust and said, "Hirschber, in the middle of Tefillah Zakah?" Hirschber was embarrassed and humiliated. Red-faced, he turned and walked back to his seat, muttering to himself, "Boine Shalolim, am I not even worth a shmek tabik?" The heavenly angels were in an uproar at Reb Baruch's lack of sensitivity. It was decreed that in the new year, the tables would be turned. Reb Baruch would lose his money and become poor, while Hirschber would become wealthy. The day after Yom Kippur, a cousin of Hirschber's came to Zhytomyr and offered to lend him some money. Hirschber started a new business venture, and the profits skyrocketed. Slowly but surely, he paid off his debts, gained much esteem, and went on to become a prominent member of the community. On the other hand, Reb Baruch made one bad business decision after another, and soon he began to lose his fortune. Realizing that his wealth was fading fast, he went immediately to his Rebbe, Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, for advice. They sat and analyzed all of Reb Baruch's actions and couldn't find any reason for his downfall. However, when Reb Baruch told Reb Levi Yitzchak that at the same time of his financial setbacks, Hirschber, who until now had been in abject poverty, had suddenly become wealthy, Reb Levi Yitzchak asked, "Can you think of any incident that involved both you and him?" When Reb Baruch recalled the incident with the shmek tabik at the start of Yom Kippur, Reb Levi Yitzchak said, "That's it. It's the humiliation that you caused Hirschber on the holiest day of the year that is at the root of your downfall." "But what can I do?" cried Reb Baruch. "There's no simple answer," replied Reb Levi Yitzchak. "Only you can help yourself. If a time comes when you ask the now wealthy Reb Hirschber for a shmek tabik, and he refuses you, then you will have a justifiable claim to God to once again reverse the situation. Until then, there's no advice I can offer." Years went by, and people forgot that Reb Baruch had once been affluent. Now it was he who was mired in poverty. Every day he waited for an opportunity to reclaim his wealth. Since Reb Hirschber was now highly regarded in Zhytomyr, when his daughter came of age, he received a marriage proposal from the son of the Rav of Zhytomyr. Father and daughter accepted the proposal, and a lavish wedding was prepared. All the Jews of Zhytomyr were invited to the wedding, and festivity and happiness reigned everywhere. At the wedding, Reb Hirsch Ber stood under the chuppah, holding the kesubah, the marriage contract. The rabbi, who was father of the groom, asked for the kesubah so that it could be read aloud. As Reb Hirsch Ber was about to give the kesubah to the rabbi, the bedraggled Reb Baruch rushed forward and stood under the chuppah along with the chassan and kala and said softly, "Ashmek tabek, Reb Hirsch Ber." Reb Hirsch Ber immediately put the kesubah back into his pocket, took out his snuff box and said, of course, here, have a whiff." Upon hearing these words, Reb Baruch fainted right under the chuppah in front of all the assembled guests. A tremendous commotion ensued. People ran up to revive the fallen Reb Baruch. 100 voices spoke at once, and confusion reigned. When Reb Baruch came to himself, Reb Hirsch Ber asked him, "What happened? What did I say to make you faint?" I can't talk now," stammered Reb Baruch. "Let's go into a private room after the chuppah, and I'll explain." After the chuppah, the two men went off together. Reb Baruch revealed to Reb Hirsch Ber the entire sequence of events that had led up to this moment, and the advice of Reb Levi Yitzchok. "And when I thought I finally had a chance to catch you off guard, I approached you in order to bring about your decline. You were so nice to me that I guess I was just overcome." Reb Baruch and Reb Hirsch Ber agreed to go to Reb Levi Yitzchok to ask for his advice. The very next week, they traveled to Berdichev, where they told Reb Levi Yitzchok what had happened. Reb Levi Yitzchok listened to the whole story and then asked Reb Hirsch Ber if he would give a percentage of his wealth to Reb Baruch, for it was obvious that his fortune had been transferred from Reb Baruch to him. Reb Hirsch Ber decided to give half of his wealth to Reb Baruch, and both of them lived out the rest of their lives as prosperous Jews in Zhytomyr.